All right, we are back. Welcome back to the Movie World Marathon. I'm Andrew.
Ooh, I'm
And
Mac.
we are on Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, the second in
Dead
our
Man Chef.
marathon. We're hyped. We're ready to go. We're excited. These movies are great. Directed
Mm-hmm.
again by
Mm-hmm.
Gore Verbinski. Came out June 24th, 2006. Um, Starring all of our returning folks, Keira Knightley, Orlando Bloom, Johnny Depp, those guys, but also now Naomi Harris as Tia Dalma and Bill
Mm-hmm.
Nye. Is it Nye? How do you say this? Is it Nye? Not just not the scientist or Nye? Davy Jones.
I have
And
no
then
idea, dude.
Tom Hollander, not Holland. That's a fun story he likes to tell. As Cutler Beckett, and yeah, all of our returning folks, except for Zoe Saldana. Put pin in that actually.
Sad
I have,
note.
I have a fun little thing about that.
Okay.
But yeah, we're back. We're back, man, and we get right in there with a fun, sad, rainy wedding. Like, oh my gosh, what's
It
going on?
is
What
so
is happening?
dramatic.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
theater kid levels are off the charts. It's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. I love it.
Right.
Sorry, continue.
No, I mean it's super dramatic. It only works if their wedding is disrupted. You know what I mean? Like, were you guys still gonna get married today with the rain?
Mhm.
Like, come on now, let's be real. You would have postponed
I like
anyway.
to think. No, I've actually rationalized this. I think it wasn't raining. Like their wedding was planned for like the morning or something. She's been there
Oh,
all day and it started raining and
I
she did not
see.
move.
I see. Right. That's weird. Honestly, I would hope my partner, if I didn't show up, not the first thought would be maybe he's running late. Maybe I should go check on him. Something like that. I hope they wouldn't just stand at the altar for 12 hours. But anyway, my first note, as we were just talking off recording, my very first note is the villain is capitalism because we get
Yep.
introduced right away to our we don't know yet, but the big bad, our Cutler Beckett,
Hmm.
this squirrely little, the most punchable man in the whole franchise. You
And
just want to
he
see him
starts.
die.
He starts by ruining everything. Like he
Yes.
goes out of his way to be as disruptive as possible to our main characters' lives,
Mm-hmm.
even to the point of like we don't care that much for Governor Swan. He's okay, right? But when he
Yeah.
starts messing with Governor Swan,
It's
we
like,
all go,
whoa
"Excuse
now.
me,
That
sir,
is
what are you
Mr.
doing?"
Governor Swan. You need to back the.
Precisely.
Yeah. But he's also, like, Hollander plays him so well, which just, it's like the umbrage of the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mhm.
Like, you hate it so well because of how well they're performed. Because he's there with the arrest warrant for William Turner and hands it over to the governor. Barely looks at it. He's like, this is for Elizabeth Swan's like, oh, sorry about that. Arrest
Uh,
her. Like it's so funny. It's so great. I love it. Anyway, I don't really care because I want to know where Jack Sparrow is, man. That's where I'm
mhm.
coming from. That's
Mhm.
what I'm here for.
He's in a trail of coffins on the ocean.
Yes, God, what a disgusting place. Like this weird gallows Azkaban that we opened up with. Like, what is this place? This is
Yeah.
nasty. It was
Mhm.
terrifying. It
Mhm.
was awful. But yeah, also great foreshadowing. Just
Oh yeah.
so
No,
strong.
you get it right away. The death, the escape, and the sea are all one thing, and
Yep.
that.
Hmm.
It,
Yep.
okay.
He's
Mhm.
introduced in a coffin this time around. That doesn't say anything about where this movie is going. Not at all. Anyway, yes, that's great.
He
It's
also, actually, in that scene, is also worth noting that he starts shooting. We actually get introduced to him
yes,
with a
yes. He
gun,
can
which is
use
a
his
clear
pistol now.
departure
Uh huh.
from the other one. Yeah.
But yeah,
Hmm.
by killing an innocent bird. Um,
I mean, it's backed up immediately with like apparently he's a sharp shot because he shoots the
mhm.
monkey and like
Yes,
he uses
yes.
his gun
He uses the
well
rifle later
throughout
on.
this
Like, yeah, we
film.
get like
Hmm.
a quote unquote exploration of his superpowers, if you will, in this movie. Like we get to see more of what he can actually do, which is really cool.
Hmm.
I do appreciate that. Um, this movie definitely does that sequel thing that we talk about. I think mostly where it takes what was fun about the first one, and I wouldn't
Hmm.
quite say dials it up to 11, but it's definitely like a
No.
10 and a half. Like, because the things that made the first one fun, we get more of in this. I'm gonna do like a general spread before we get into like the specifics, because we just watched it. I want to talk like cool, fun sword fight that it goes around multiple locations. We get that,
Hmm.
and it's expanded upon. That's the whole
Hmm.
second to last final sequence of the movie. It goes on a little long, maybe, depending on how you feel when you're watching it, but it is very fun. Crazy,
Hmm.
weird, monster cursed pirates. dial that up for sure. We get that again. In some ways, it feels like we're rehashing the same thing. Not quite, but like a little bit. We go from a bunch of faceless monster pirates to a bunch of new faceless monster pirates. They just look more interesting when you really, really look at them.
Although, to credit the writers, they do a really good job of humanizing their
Oh,
goons. We always get like a
always,
funny character that we
always,
follow throughout the film.
yes,
So
yes.
appreciate
And
that.
when you get into the details that go into these ghost and like fish pirates, it is insane the amount of work they go into. Every one of these fish guys has like their own wiki page because of how much lore there is to these movies.
Wow.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And yeah, Elizabeth is still on her journey of becoming a pirate and learning more about the sea and all that. That's great. Will is, we took amazing things from the first movie that like either set up brilliantly for a sequel, or they had no idea how well the first one was going to do. They made a sequel and they used little breadcrumbs in the first one that weren't breadcrumbs and made them breadcrumbs in a masterful way. We get that line. And then they made me their chief from the first one, took that and made that a whole sequence in this one. We get, Bootstrap Bill Turner stuff in the first one. We make that a whole plot point in this one, and we actually get to meet Bootstrap Bill. That's great. All that's great. I still, I don't quite know what it is. I just don't think it's as good as the first, necessarily. I do think it's a little long. Not necessarily a critique, but I don't know how to visualize the rising and falling action of this movie. And when I try, it's not the way that we were taught, quote unquote, in school, like creative writing. Because there are, and I don't hate it, especially if I'm watching for fun, if I'm honestly watching to critique. There are so many adventures in this movie, and they're all fantastic and fun, but they all have like a rising and falling action and a climax of the sequence where there's like 2.5 movies in this movie. But it doesn't feel bloated, and it doesn't feel stretched out necessarily, but you get to a point where like if you were watching this and fell asleep and then woke up, you'd almost think you were in another movie.
A new film,
and
yeah.
you wouldn't necessarily be wrong to think that, like, just because of, like, we get introduced to 2 completely different kinds of villains. We have a consistent goal throughout the movie, but we also then have a third villain in the end, which is, like, the Kraken. So, like, there's so much going on in this movie.
So I 100% agree. And I feel like a part of what's happening is they know they're going to get a trilogy now. And so they are building themselves up for the third one, which is why it doesn't totally feel whole to itself. I actually have a theory about trilogies specifically. The first one, especially if they do not know that it's going to be a trilogy, the first one is usually an awesome film that feels really fun and feels like it's full of promise for the future. It does not necessarily, especially if it doesn't know that it's going to be the start of a series, it does not necessarily have a cliffhanger. Even if it knows it's going to be like the start of a series, usually there's a fair amount of like resolution because it's like an introduction. Like you've met all of your characters, you know the world that you're in. It feels pretty complete. The second one is tricky. Writing a second film is, I would say, not quite as hard as writing the third and final film, but pretty difficult to do well because, especially if you didn't know you were going to have a franchise, you have to find a way to connect it well with the first film. Drag out bits of the first.
Stop it. Quit it, you little turd. Barking at. Nothing is happening. Stop it. Sorry, go on.
Gotta bark sometimes. Anyway, if you didn't know it was going to be a franchise, you have to reach into the first one, pull things out of the first one, make it worthwhile and good in the second one, and set yourself up for a third one, all while having a story in and of itself. Like, that's a lot of things to do. It's kind of more like a checklist or a bridge than it is its own film. And I think that's what happens with this one here, which sounds like a critique, but if we're looking at this film as a part of a trilogy, and as its own film, like I would sit down and just watch this film. I don't think it would be as satisfying as sitting down and just watching the first film because it does leave quite a bit of an open end, but it is still good on its own. You don't have to have the other pieces to appreciate it. And I think that's really unique for a second film. I think second films often feel very, very unfinished at the end, or like it's often more like they make one story and break it in half for the second two films. That's not really what they've done here. They introduce us to two new villains, you're right, and they're opposite. But the reason they feel connected is because one villain is after the other. And that one villain sends our heroes on a quest to figure out what's going on there, but our heroes don't really know what's going on there. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that. They drag out stuff from Jack's background to use in this film, not just for fun little adventures, but like to be very relevant to the new other big bad they've brought into the story, and like both big bads actually, because it's heavily implied in the scene with Beckett and Sparrow that Beckett is the one who put the brand on him, right? And they don't talk about that in the original cut of the film at all. And then later, it's actually, if you know all the lore, it's kind of the same situation that from Jack's past, actually, that gets him the same kind of connection to Davy Jones, which is an insane level of story writing and planning to do. Again, from small moments in the first one that you basically didn't even use. Like the pirate brand shows up once in the first film, and they manage to make that a whole backstory for him that connects him both to high level like authorities in the East India Trading Company and to the mythical Davy Jones. Like that's insane. And it's also pretty heavily implied that it's because of those two things that he knows about Tia Dolma, which is the other massive power in this series.
Yeah,
so
seriously.
Like Jack Sparrow is just the most connected guy you'll ever know. Like
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of wish sometimes this was just we could get like a, I don't know, like a Jack Sparrow series or something just about him exploring the world before he had the pearl or something like that. I don't know what it is she's growling at. Will you stop it?
Oh no, just because we have a weird break here. I think the fishnet mending guy who directed Will to the island is an accidental cannibal because he trades for meat with the island.
It's not an accident.
Okay, he knows then.
No, I have that's I wrote that down. We'll get to that. So yes, all of that is brilliant, and I agree with all of it. And just to keep it moving, I just have a couple of my notes where we're at now. I love that they bring in Bootstrap. That whole sequence is mystical and ghostly and weird and creepy, and it was so wild to think about him dealing with being at the bottom of the ocean while cursed. I never really thought about that in the first one, honestly. I just didn't, because I never thought about that he would just be down there alive. I never thought of that. That's insane. So that's awesome that they work with that. The black spot I know is like a thing from quote unquote pirate lore, so it was cool that they brought that in. This is like a little side tangent thing. The part where Jack freaks out and is demanding that everyone get up and they go to the Pelagostos island. I don't remember what movie it was, but I think it might have been Narnia, honestly. I had a DVD, and the trailers it played before the movie started, one of them was for Dead Man's Chest. And I had never seen the movie, but I knew the trailer by heart because we watched Narnia so many times. The trailer for Dead Man's Chest is one of the coolest movie trailers I've ever seen. It was wild and dramatic and dark and creepy. It starts with like Davy Jones' introduction, then it cuts to Jack, and it's wild and fun. But the tone for the trailer is so much darker and serious than the tone of the movie as a whole. So the part in the trailer where he's like yelling, "On deck, you scabrous dogs, move it!" It's like I thought Jack was like the serious, intense captain, but then in the movie it's like land, get anywhere, go, oh, ah! I was like, oh, that's not what I thought it would be. So the movie is still great, but it like I would watch this trailer and it was like this little tidbit of this thing I didn't have access to, and so I built Jack Sparrow up in my head as this crazy, wild, intense pirate. And then the movie happened, and I finally saw it. And I was like, okay, well, no, not really. That's fine. Whatever. Sure. Yeah. So they get to the Pelagostos, and even I think you could almost argue that this is the sequence that could be cut from the movie, and it really not matter. Mm-hmm. But I love it.
I agree.
It is so much fun, though. The eyes on his eyelids, and him immediately saving Will by saying he's too skinny to eat, and then being in cages built by the rest of the crew, and them swinging in the canyon to escape, and then them all of it is great. I honestly love it.
It's also a flex with the soundtrack, because this is the point where I was listening to it and I was like, they timed it. They timed the comedy beats in the scene to match with the beats of the music, and it's so funny. The only thing I do feel like, well, if we're going to ignore the fact that the whole thing really could be cut to save us a little bit of time in the film, which, like, saving time is not inherently a good thing, so I'm not arguing that we should. But if we were to say, like, we're not going to cut any of it, the one thing that maybe could be trimmed down is, like, the fruit kebab sequence.
Probably. I'll give you that. It's a little long. Sure.
It's a little bit long. It's a little bit improbable. And then it gets really improbable.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
tad.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I did make a note, as mentioned, when Will is looking for Jack and is asking people where they are, and the one French salesman, French sailor, he mentions that the island has really good long pork. That is slang for human flesh. He is aware that the island is cannibals, and he is himself.
I thought it was an accident.
Nope, that. So we've been talking about it, but like it needs to be said more. This movie foreshadows so much constantly and consistently, and like honestly, it's not even just foreshadowing. This movie lays out everything that is happening before you. It says it to your face, but you don't know what's happening at the first time you watch it, because the parrot is saying, "Don't eat me, don't eat me," after the other guy already talked about technically that it's a cannibal island, which is great. But then we get to, skipping ahead for a minute, we get to Tia Dalma, and she tells the story of Davy Jones and the love that he, did all that stuff for, and it's like, well, we find out later it's her. Now, stepping back, is this like a Star Wars situation where like they changed that for the third movie, or was she always going to be that? She has a little music box that is the same as the locket that Davy Jones has on his piano. It was like that from the beginning. They laid it out. It was all there. Also, in that same sequence, Jack picks up a little hat with a feather in it. That's Barbossa's hat. It laid out what was going to happen in the end right away.
See, I hadn't thought about, like, did they change Tia Dalma's backstory just to be cooler for the third one?
Nope.
I love that they didn't, especially since what I was thinking about with it is putting her in a Louisiana setting or like a bayou setting is such a cool choice, because not only does it introduce us to another, like, I guess, system or setting of the Caribbean, because it's part of it. It also, like, establishes her as sort of like a natural voodoo medicine woman kind of thing, right? Like, she's like witchy and earthy, ironically, maybe earthy. But it also, like, she is a Black woman. She is the goddess of the ocean bound in Louisiana. Like, even if it's not Louisiana, it's the bayou, right? Like, this movie comes so close to directly talking about slavery, and then, like, dips almost every single time, but it's still there. And I think that is an excellent choice. Like, It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's so
It's also,
cool.
this whole sequence also does happen right after Gibbs explains why the Pelagostos have Jack. They think he's a god in human form. So we're
Hmm.
introduced to that
Hmm.
idea right before we meet a god bound in human form. Ah, it's all there.
Well, and they also like just metaphorically, figuratively speaking, Tia Dolma is when metaphor in this world becomes reality. Like she's the one who gave Jack the compass that points to like his like heart's desire. Follow your heart.
Uh-huh.
Literal, it's a metaphor made literal, right? The woman and the sea. She's like both versions are
Yeah, it's
true.
like both are
Like
true.
it's and in this case,
Yeah,
literally both are
exactly.
true. It is both a
Uh-huh.
woman and the sea. Like
Mm-hmm.
the locking up your heart thing is literal because like not only did he shut things out so he didn't have to feel things anymore, he literally removed his heart from his chest, put it in another chest, Deadman's
Yep.
chest. Ah, ha, ha. And like there's the jar of dirt that she gives to Jack.
Yep.
It is a emotional comfort, like a teddy bear for him.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like it's a tool for him to hide the heart in later. It doesn't last in very long, but it's a tool for him later. And the spot reappears, and he says, "I want my jar of dirt," because he feels more secure with the jar of dirt. She says, it works if it makes you feel better," which it
Mm-hmm.
does. And when the jar of dirt is broken, is when all hell breaks loose in the story. So like there's so much going on with the metaphor and the symbols that she uses in the story. And it's all kind of pointing back to her. All of the crazy things come back to her, with maybe
Mm-hmm.
the exception of the treasure from the first film. Like
Right.
that's the only non-super, like, the only supernatural thing that doesn't have its source in Tia Dolma.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Yep. But like, okay, I just want to double check here.
Mm, mm.
It's not that the jar breaks that's the problem. It's that the heart
No.
isn't there is the problem.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
this is correct.
I just
It's
wanted
not like
to
it's a spell that breaks,
right.
but it is when
It's
his safety
a visual metaphor for what's
shatters.
happening.
Yeah,
Okay, I got you. I got you.
right. But again, like because all metaphors are literal with Tia Dolma, like
True. That's a good point.
that's a part of it.
Yeah. Now, I want to just for a second here. With what
Mm-hmm.
is discussed in this one, and then in the third one, we get the line, "Don't tell me you didn't enjoy it while it lasted," from Teal Dama to Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Are we? Is that? Are we confirming that Jack
Oh.
fucked a god? Because that's next level. That's kind of crazy, and like
Yeah.
that's intense. Are we saying that? Is that what they're saying?
You know, I have a hard time imagining him as a peer with a god, but being a god's ex does make sense for like all of his personality.
That's true. You know what? Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting to
Uh-huh.
think about.
It's flirty. At the
Yeah.
very least,
You know
they're
what's
like they have a habit of flirting.
yeah. I'm excited now for the third one again because I just want to. I'm gonna have to pay close attention. I don't know if Jack is around. He's not around when they release her. I don't know if he's around when they talk about releasing her. I don't know if he ever knows that. No, wait, no. He talks about it. He does talk about it to the other pirate lords. I was gonna say I don't know if he knows
Correct.
that he slept with a god. Anyway, so yeah, I do love the inclusion of Tia Dalma. I really love that she's a bigger part in the next one because she's definitely one of the shining moments of this one. So all that's great. So yeah, from there though, this is where I have some confusions, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it. We go to the wrecked ship where Will is sent off to find the key, and then we meet Davy Jones. Awesome. We meet the fish pirates. Super cool. Love all the designs. They're great. What is that ship there? Because I had like 3 different thoughts while watching this and paying attention because I cannot figure out what it is, and I couldn't find anything right away on YouTube. Yeah, so like my 3 ideas. I don't know. My first thought was that this is the original Flying Dutchman. This is like a weird, like, I can't think of the word. Not memorial, but like a leftover, a relic of a past time. This is the other Flying Dutchman is like a mystical new version that has come about, and this is like a weird Stonehenge like access to Davy Jones. And that's why all these like dying and 6 sailors go to this ship as a way to access Davy Jones. Then I thought, that doesn't really make any sense. Jack just lied to Will, and this is actually just a ship that crashed, and because these guys are dying, Davy Jones is drawn to it because he's supposed to take them to the other side. But then it was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because there's no way to predict where a ship is going to crash, and why would all these guys be completely unrelated to each other and not be like on the... It's like, I don't know what's happening in the sequence where Will goes to the quote-unquote Flying Dutchman. Did you pick up more on what I'm missing, or is it just that ambiguous?
Pretty ambiguous. I don't know that I picked up on any more of like hard clues. I have always thought Jack just lied, and it's just a ship that's been wrecked. Although I'd love to go back and watch it again in detail, because I do think the way my brain filled in the blank spaces, I was like, this is one of the many independent ships that are victims of the fact that the world is growing smaller. I think the first time I watched it, I thought it was the ship that Elizabeth had stowed away on. Clearly not, because that comes up again later in the film. But I think my apartment went, oh, sorry, let me check again. My brain went, oh, it wasn't that one. Well, it was another one then. And the only thing that would truly be weird would be that Jack knew they happened to be wrecked there. I think you could fill in that space pretty easily by saying, like, he knows the routes of pirates, and so he would know where there'd be likely be a wreck, or even, like, where there'd be rough territory on the waters, and he would expect there to be a wreck. I don't think we know what happened to that ship. We just know that it's sinking and dying.
That's what's driving me
anything
nuts.
Could be the demise.
Because what we find out more in the next one, and maybe I shouldn't be using the rules of the next one, Davy Jones isn't doing his job. He's not transporting people to the afterlife like he's supposed to, which is why I feel like this isn't just a random ship. This is like a significant spot. And the line that Jones says to Will, you are neither dead nor dying, makes me think like desperate sailors who know the legend of Davy Jones are going here, waiting for him to try to make that deal. Because otherwise, why would it just show up? We've had lots of sailors dying at sea already, and lots of ships that are sinking and whatnot, and we've not dealt with Jones at all. Like, and up until this point, Davy Jones to so many people is a legend. You know, for like Gibbs, people like Gibbs and people like Jack who've already met him, he's the real deal. But for other people, it's not that significant, which makes me think this shipwreck is like, why, what?
We're so dumb.
What?
At this point,
what?
Jack has given Will the compass, and Will is using the compass to find the key.
Yeah.
And the compass would point them to that ship because Davy Jones was gonna be there for whatever reason. He decided to pick some people up today, and that kind of explains the whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess it does. That doesn't answer all my questions, but I guess it answers the plot holy kind of questions.
I mean, like, obviously, Jack would have then had to lie. He looked at the ship and knew it wasn't the Flying Dutchman, but said that's where you need to go.
So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But what is the guy who falls out of the air whose face is all messed up? What is that about?
He's just basically dead or dying.
But like, what is his face? See, when he falls out of the air, I almost thought, again, this is like a mystical Stonehenge where every sailor who dies at sea starts here. And Jones is supposed to come and transport them. That doesn't make any sense. There'd be so many of them. But like, what is his face? Whatever. I don't want to fixate on it too much. But I did get confused. I'm always confused by this moment.
I'm pretty sure the compass just told them to go there, and they did. And Jack, taking advantage of the situation like he always does, said that it was the Dutchman. And...
Fine. And then fine. Then Jones is here. Jones is awesome. The design is great. The breathing of smoke out of one of his weird little octopus vents on the side of his head, gorgeous.
It's so good.
The peg leg that is a crab leg. Bravo, sir. Bravo. That's fantastic. I would just kind of like to see someone's interpretation of like what this looked like over time. You know what I mean? Like, how did you go from what you were to this? Was it gradual?
The decay of Davy Jones.
Was it like The Fly, where like you had like weird coral shells that were growing on top of you, and then they broke away, and you had tentacles all at the same time. Like, whatever. I don't necessarily know how I feel about the fact that he can teleport. It makes for cool movie watching, but it's also kind of like, do you need a ship? Like, you could just travel from ship to ship, and it kind of be this badass, weird, ghostly power thing that you do. But
you mess with the whole mythology of the thing if you say he doesn't have a ship.
Sure. Again, I could also say it's fine that he has those powers. It's weird that the whole crew does. Because we get introduced later to, like, full-on ghost pirates. It's strange that the fish pirates have the ability to teleport. It's just... Traveling through the ocean very quickly is one thing. And phasing through the wood of the ships that we see them do now and then, that's another thing. But just straight up apparating more efficiently than Harry Potter, that's a little strange to me. Because I can't think of an immediate, like, nautical, fun, sailor, mystical, immediate reason for that. I can't think of, well, yeah, that's within the powers of your fish anatomy. Reasons for that. It's just kind of a cool horror moment where we take the spyglass down and boom, octopus. Other than that, I don't really get it, man. I don't really get it. He's already loaded. I don't know if we needed the power to teleport.
I think that's fun. I think that's fun cinematic mythology nonsense.
Okay.
I mean, I get it, but, like, do they ever abuse it in the story, right? Like,
no, but that's where I get confused, is, like, you should never not have the upper hand. Because you can teleport. Like, fine. That's fine. It's fine. It's whatever.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, yeah. We should mention probably the 100 Souls thing with Sparrow.
Yeah.
And maybe cry a little bit about deleted scenes and choices. Because if I don't necessarily think it's bad. I don't think that we necessarily have to save time when making a film that's kind of the wrong mentality to have. But if you cut, like, 2 minutes of the cannibal chase scene and you give it to a scene that explains the whole at least a little bit of the backstory of Jack Sparrow and why the 100 Souls and the piracy thing are all connected, that feels like a good choice.
What was the scene that you watched? Because I may have seen it a long time ago. I didn't watch it for this. Like, I didn't look it up. I watched the one that was on Disney Plus.
It's been a minute since I've seen the whole thing, but there is a quick scene, I believe, in Beckett's office where
that's
they
the
have
next movie.
confrontation.
I've seen that. That's not this movie.
Oh, that's the next one?
Yes,
okay.
I'm aware of that deleted scene. We can't talk about that yet. Mm-hmm. You are absolutely right. It's weird they cut that, but that's for next week.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, in that case, this movie just perfectly sets up a mystery that should be answered in the third film, but may not be because choices.
Totally fair.
I also think it's fun that in a film that deals with, like, the literal supernatural, Elizabeth's way to manipulate her crew that she's stowed on with is to create a ghost. Now, granted, they give her the idea, but, like, she's the one who has the least interaction with the supernatural in this film, and she's like, let me just make my own supernatural real quick to get what I want.
That, I think, is another note I forgot while I was talking about this film. Feels like a lot. The first one was 2 stories going on at the same time. This one is like 4. It's got Elizabeth's journey, it's got Will's journey and Jack's journey all at the same time for a moment. Then we have Will and Jack's journey and Elizabeth's journey. Then we have Will's journey and Jack's journey and Elizabeth's journey again. And we keep coming back and forth to Beckett and all the shit he's doing. There's a lot going on that doesn't really
Norrington
come together.
For good measure.
Yeah. And I wrote down that as well that we get Norrington. And that is both a cool connection to the first movie, sets up some cool stuff in the next movie. I do wonder if that's another thing, though, that really didn't have to be in this necessarily. You said that you
love
liked him.
Norrington in this film.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a case, though, at the end of next week's episode that he is the biggest problem of this whole franchise. The biggest problem.
And I don't think, like, you could convince me that is true, and I don't think I would necessarily like him less as a character. Because I think, like, not necessarily like him as in, like, think he's a good person. Like him as in the writing for that character is awesome. Because I think he has all the energy of a season 1 villain in a show that then becomes, like, a begrudging ally in the second half of the show, right? But that's not really what he does. He still has his own motivations and his own like ambition throughout the rest of his own story, and he doesn't get neglected. Like the fact that he's involved complicates things in a way that doesn't screw up any of the story, but adds like a fun level of like, and your consequences and the people that you hurt don't go away. And I like that.
I get that, but I feel like you're talking about him almost like he's a force of nature for them to deal with. I think there's almost a way you could tweak a couple of the things he does to make him one of the coolest and maybe most tragic characters of the trilogy. But the way he's written as is, he is, I'm going to argue later, the biggest problem child of the whole franchise. And he's not there enough for it to warrant that. But he is. Like, because in the first one, the person who destroys Jack's brilliant plan is Will. And Will makes up for it time and time and time again. And then in this one, the guy who ruins the whole plan and sends the entire pirate world into the depths and control of the East India Trading Company is James fucking Norrington. And he only slightly makes up for it in the end and then dies. And we're supposed to be like upset about it. But like, no, dude. No.
No. I don't champion him, again, as a hero. I think he is just an incredibly well-written, consistent character. And I love that he is his own agent and causes problems for both sides. I like that he's a human being that is swayed by other characters, but is ultimately like flawed still. I mean, yeah, you could make a pretty solid argument about him maybe causing more trouble than he's worth as a character, but I like his unique presence. That kind of character doesn't exist in a lot of things. Usually it's like the character is on some sort of intentional arc about like trying to become like a good person. That's not really what he's doing ever.
I appreciate your analysis, but I don't think he's that consistent of a character. And if I wanted to play devil's advocate for you and say he is consistent, he's consistently not good. I don't think he's that interesting. I think you tweak those few things that I have not elaborated on, and you make him super interesting. I think it's problematic right out the gate that he's proposing to Elizabeth in the beginning of the first movie. You've immediately made yourself a creep, and I don't like you, and I don't care for you, and I don't care what you do in the end. And then in this one, the most interesting thing is that he's there, I like for a second, but like he doesn't do anything in the end except cause issues. I think there's a cool way you could have worked with it, where you have this in the first movie, this beginning of a fall from grace. And then in the second one, we see the ramifications of that. And I think in the third one, it would have been more interesting if he became full pirate and not full-blown military man again. Like, I think that could have been so cool. I think that could have been so cool. Cool.
Okay, we'll have to revisit this.
Yeah, we will.
At the third one, anyway.
I think James Norrington has the potential to be an incredibly interesting presence. I don't think he is as is. I think he's just a hindrance at best. Stop it! Quit barking at nothing. Stop.
Ooh, I want to take a moment.
Okay.
Music.
Yes.
But specifically the organ.
Yes.
Dude.
Yes.
There's so much. Not only is it just an epic theme because of how dramatic it is. I mean, the drama in this film. But it's also, like, there's just so much going on meaning-wise. Like, first off, an organ is, like, a villain's instrument. And that's been established since, I think, a particular
Phantom of the
opera or short film. No, it's older than that. But the reason... Like it used to be like a church instrument. Like people would associate it with like hymns and stuff like that because churches were the only place that could really have them. But it's played and I don't know enough. I'll have to revisit my music essay guy. But anyway, the point is it's a villain's instrument, right? We already know that. So we're establishing him as a like high drama villain right here. But he's playing a lullaby on an organ, which, like, already brings us to some contradictions because an organ is loud and attention grabbing, and a lullaby is supposed to be soft and almost like something you can fade away from because of how calming and gentle it is. Then you have the fact that he's playing a love song to try and clear his head. His whole thing is that he's so distracted and wrapped up in his broken heart, or, you know, the fact that he loves it all, he can't handle it, so he tries to get away from it. But his way to calm down is playing the organ and playing the song that reminds him of the person that he loves. And then there's like the fact that it's his private feelings that he's trying to repress, that he's making public on the organ. Like everybody on the ship can hear him having an emo moment. And finally, it is a love song that is his theme. It's a love song that is a villain's theme. So like the whole thing is just wrapped up in a whole bunch of like interesting juxtapositions. I don't like, that's just crazy. And that's just a scene. That's just a moment. They're like, let's have this love song be our villain theme. Let's have him play it on an organ on the ocean. It's supposed to be a soft lullaby, but he's having a moment and he's just going out on it. And he's not bothered by the fact that like other people can hear the music. It's just like, that's such a cool villain moment with so many things going on in it. And it's just a moment in this series that has so much else going on.
And he's playing it with his beard.
Yes! How does that look cool?
I know. When do you think he realized, like, he thought, like, can I do this with my beard tentacles? Like, and then he, like, gave it a shot. So, it's, like, it's cool enough that you really don't clock that right away. It's like, he's playing music with his beard. Like it's not the thing that stands out. It's how cool the music is and how dramatic it is. And then he's like, that's a little funky. That's a little strange.
I mean, my thought was he's playing with his chin. That is strange. Okay,
but it's his beard technically.
But it's so good. It is technically his beard. Yeah, it's
his weird tentacle beard. Or because it's an octopus, is he playing it with his arms?
Do they count as arms? I mean, they're dexterous limbs.
Yeah, because they're octopus tentacles. Is his face covered in arms? That's weird to think about.
I mean, aesthetically, it's supposed to be a beard, but like functionally, it's more a series of arms.
But like, if you think of an octopus's tentacles as arms, he has a face that's covered in arms, which is gross.
Yeah.
Anyway,
you haven't spent enough time thinking about this.
No, but I will. So, what's next? My goodness. I think we're about at the time. Well, Will does the weird dice game and meets his dad, and that's all great. I love the guy who's like a part of the ship. That's really cool. Learning more lore about the Flying Dutchman and how it works.
My note is, I love the coral wall man who awakes, drops lore, and then immediately regrets it and goes back to the wall.
Yes. Whose brain is attached to the wall. That's amazing.
Oh man, like you were mentioning, the Bootstrap stepping in to protect Will and the dice game. First off, Liar's Dice is very fun. You should play if you haven't. Second, Bootstrap Bill stepping in is immediately paralleled by Governor Swan and like him trying to protect Elizabeth, basically kind of selling out his honor to try and protect Elizabeth. So I love the fact that again this film is paying attention to its details, and they took the time to intentionally put those two scenes next to each other so we could see how the two fathers genuinely care for their kids and are protecting their kids. And of course, their kids are the ones that are sort of like driving the story or in a romantic relationship. So the whole thing just like harmonizes really well. It's always really cool.
We get another example of really great miscommunication and misunderstandings that create story, because they just say, Mr. Turner, fix this, and they both run to do it, which causes issues. We haven't touched at all on how there's massive confusion by both Will and Elizabeth, because they think that Beckett wants the compass for one reason, because they don't actually know how the compass works, which is incredible. It causes all this fun stuff that we had to learn about. It's great. Back to the ship, yes. Both the Turners meet. Wonderful. Weird coral brain guy. Wonderful. Dice game. Wonderful. I didn't understand that for the longest time as a kid. I just didn't. Again, I was younger. I had no idea what they were talking about.
Oh, it took me playing the game to understand how the game worked. Like I just kind of took the character's words for it that somebody won and lost, and
Mm.
that
It's
that one
like
of them had been put in an impossible
I
position, and that
think
Bootstrap
Turner
took it for
lost.
Will.
What
Yeah,
are all the numbers mean? Do the colors mean
yeah.
anything at all?
Um, I love that Will was deceiving. Like Will's actually in a Jack moment here because
Yes, he's
he's
playing
only playing
everybody.
so that he can find the key,
Hmm.
and his dad jumps in like, "Dude, you can't make a deal like that." And Will was like, "I wasn't gonna. I was just trying to find out
I
where
had
the
it under
key
control,
was."
Dad. You messed it
Yeah,
all up.
basically.
Damn it.
Oh man.
Yeah, fantastic. And then the Kraken
Okay.
comes into it, destroys the ship, and that's all good and fun. More classic
I
pirate
loved
lore.
I love that we don't see the Kraken right away. Like the first time it takes the ship, we
Yes,
don't see that.
yes.
Good choice. I
Hmm.
mean, I know that like again, this is a fantasy story. We've already seen the supernatural, so it would have been really easy for them to like open their movie with the threat of the Kraken, which they do, and then
Mm.
like show us the threat of the Kraken. But they play it in such a clever way where we understand the stakes, we understand the danger, and yet we don't see it until it becomes more of a present threat. Love that. What else? What else? What else? Oh, I had something. Oh, we should probably talk about the love triangle nonsense that kind of happens in this
Yeah, I
film.
guess we gotta,
How
don't
do
we?
you feel about that? Because I have a
Well,
definite opinion
if we
on it,
want to
but I want to know
be
what your opinion is.
so okay, I'm gonna use my opinion. I'm gonna say my opinion, and my opinion is gonna be the one that we actually go with because I say the gross words. We don't have a love triangle going on here. We just don't.
Okay, appreciate that.
It's a hardcore lust triangle. It's just straight up.
Mm,
Jack is infatuated by Elizabeth because, unfortunately,
true.
let's be honest, everyone is. And Elizabeth
Oh
is
yeah.
infatuated by Jack. She does not love Jack. She wants Jack. That's what's said in the movie, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what we're talking about. That's all it is. We're back.
Mm-hmm.
We're back in the days where no one was doing anything unless you were married, unless you were a pirate. And Elizabeth is
And
not a
she
pirate
didn't
yet.
get her wedding night, which
She
she
didn't get her
mentioned
wedding
several
night.
times.
She was robbed of her wedding night. Yeah, that's all that's
Mm-hmm.
going on. She's out at sea, fucking horny, and here's Jack, who is the embodiment of adventure and freedom, which is what she wants. That's why she wants
Mm-hmm.
him. It's not a love triangle. What I don't like is how it ends up causing issues in the next one because Will sees that she kissed him. But like, I don't consider a love triangle unless it's actual legitimate mutual interest all around. There isn't that. She's in love with Will.
Got it.
Will's in love with her. She's infatuated with Jack when they're out and about by themselves, and he is down for anyone who's a lady, probably with legs. So I'm not like Jack's not like out pining for Elizabeth. Come on now. So I don't care a great deal. The only thing that I like that of the issues it causes in the next one is when he calls out everyone for trying to kill him and one succeeded and no one knows it was Elizabeth yet and he's like, "Oh, she's not told you." Like that's a really fun moment. Other than that, it's whatever, man. It's fine. The acting is pretty good. I believe it when they're on the ship and they're flirting. Damn,
Mm-hmm.
I feel the tension, but nah, there's no love triangle.
That's kind of what my opinion boils down to as well, actually. I'm actually a little bit annoyed that Elizabeth wants Jack. Oh, just kind of like from the sense of like, it kind of feels like the only reason that happens is because the writers wanted to have a love triangle,
Mm,
but like they don't commit to it, which I'm
yeah.
grateful for, I think, at the end of the day, because it really is quite dumb to watch Will and Elizabeth throughout any of these films and be like their relationship was ever really in jeopardy,
Well,
right?
true. I don't like the idea of putting the relationship in jeopardy, but I do think that what they do is believable in that I think it's not like Jack comes in and puts the relationship in jeopardy. I think you can argue more strongly that the infatuation slash desire for
Is
Will
symbolic.
and well, not just that, legitimately, let's say it's not symbolic. the infatuation and desire for Jack happens at the exact same time as it does for Will. Elizabeth isn't full-blown in love with Will just yet at the beginning of Curse of the Black Pearl. But it's developing and it is growing, especially when he comes to save her. But who saves her first? Jack. And who threatens her first? Jack. And she doesn't give a shit about that in the first movie. If anything, if we wanted to be blunt, again, she might have liked it. Who knows? I don't know. I'm not going to speak for her. But, like, she didn't care about that at the end. When the maid's like, you must have had a really rough day. He's like, yeah, that proposal, man, it really threw me. She's like, no, I meant you being threatened by that pirate. It must have been terrifying. She's like, oh yeah, no, it was... that
was also a problem, for sure.
Yeah, it was terrifying. Like, was it, Elizabeth? Was it really? Was it? So, and I do think, all respect to Will, there might be a little bit of that cliche, Will is a boy and Jack is a man. Because, like, granted, you watch these movies and he's falling around off the stairs with his jar of dirt and he's a fruit kebab. But Elizabeth, like us, watching this as a whole, knows that he is a competent leader. He's intelligent. He is everything she wants to be as far as an adventurer and a free agent and can do what he wants to do. And not that it doesn't hurt anything. He's not bad looking. You know, like Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp, he's a good-looking guy. So I can understand why she would want him. Also, this kind of connects to a point that we don't ever deal with in these movies, which is fair, but there are easily days between sequences because of how much ocean we are transversing to get from point A to B to C to D to E. Days! You can't just go, like, you're not going to tell me that Tortuga and the Bayou and wherever we go, the Pelagostos and all that and Port Royal are within, like, you know, maybe 10 miles of ocean. Bullshit, they are. Days of transversal between places. So Elizabeth is feeling the way she's feeling, already maybe having some, like, back of the mind subconscious potential attraction to Jack, and they're out there by them. Like, come on now. I don't give a shit. She also doesn't understand the stakes of what I'm supposed to be finding is this mystical, magical heart item from kind of this weird sea demigod. She's just looking for the thing to get to the guy that she wants. That's all the compass cares about, is what you want in the moment. Because we even get that funny moment at the end of the next one where Jack either wants the Fountain of Youth or a bottle of rum, and as soon as he gets a sip of rum, it goes back to the Fountain of Youth. It's a fickle thing. So her having the hots form in that moment and that throwing off the compass, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. So, like, my take on it is pretty symbolic in the sense that I think the reason she has any interest in Jack is just because she knows she can kind of get what she wants with him, right? Like, he wouldn't really stop her at any point. Like, again,
that too. Yeah.
Maybe this is wrong, but Elizabeth thinks she can outsmart Jack, and like she does at the end, specifically through sexuality. So, like, there's this element to Elizabeth where she's frustrated and she's mad and she's ready to just get her life started. And she wants that to be with Will. But you're right. It's probably weeks. And she's trying, like, it's been weeks since her wedding. And she's just tired and frustrated. And then she knows that her life with Will might continue to be a series of escaping or evading. Whereas Jack is currently on the ship. And she's pretty sure she could take control of the situation if it needed to be. So, like, it's almost more of like a temptation than it is anything else. I think what bothers me is the way that the shots tend to linger on it in a little way. Like they want you to consider it more significantly than I think it really values. If they played it more for jokes, I think that's funny. Like the moment where she's on the island where the chest is, and she's like, it's spinning around and it points to him for a second, but it's largely because she's just already on top of where she needs to be. Like, and then she's like very frustrated with it pointing at him, and she kind of like scoffs a little bit, and it's like he kind of looks all heroic in the moment. Like, that's hilarious, especially when it swings around and points at Norrington for a second. Like, that's So funny.
You know what you could also maybe consider if we watch again and pay attention? It might be pointing to where Will comes from because he's there
Yeah.
at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's multiple ways you could interpret that. I also think if you wanted to play into is it a love triangle or not, the fact that she's so adamantly against it says to me it's not love. It's hormones. It's pheromones in the moment. She is annoyed that the compass is saying that she wants Jack because she's not in love with Jack.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. And I think that's why I think maybe what I come down on is that it just the fact that the compass points towards Jack, the fact that there's like, I guess, sexual tension between the two of them, that's not a problem for me. The problem comes in when it's given like significant weight, which given how the end of the film goes down, audience members do take that way too seriously. She is kissing Jack because she wants him to be off his guard so she can lock him up and she can get away with Will. The way I frame it, she kisses Jack to save Will's life. So it's not really about her feelings for Jack at all in the moment. She's trying to save the crew. But the just sort of like that moment, because there is a kiss, because there is this moment where people are like, see, she'd be willing to do it. I'm like,
no, come on now. Media literacy.
They have enough time and they lend enough cinematic or maybe plot weight to the flirtationship that happens earlier in the film. I do feel like they could have changed or adjusted the tone of those scenes a little bit, so it was less Elizabeth is genuinely considering abandoning Will and just riding off into the sunset with Jack, and more she's tired, exhausted, and she's ready to have her wedding night.
Yeah. Well, we have like not a lot of time left, so we have to talk about the ending, which we kind of got with her, tricking Jack. It's cool that Jack comes back to save the day and all that. It's a little weird that he would leave and then come back. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's whatever. But he comes back.
Jack is a hero in this film, but it's fine. Let's keep going.
And then he's full blown eaten, which is wild. And I really wish I could have watched these movies as an adult as they came out, because the twist, first of all, him just dying, crazy. And then Barbossa being back in the end is insane. There's like no. If you're watching these movies just from the beginning, there's not a single thing you can think of as to why he's back. It makes no sense. It's insane. It is crazy. And that was my note. The cast didn't know he was there. They were told it was Zoe Saldana's character. Oh. They were told it was Anna Maria who was coming back to be the captain. So when they all, like their faces right before it cuts to Barbossa, that's real because they had no idea it was Barbossa. So that's fun. That's great.
That's really cool.
And then I have this little note here. This is so weird. Everyone, first of all, I think it's great when Tia Dalma was like, would you do it? Would you go to the ends of the earth to bring Jack back? And the first one to say yes is Gibbs. Love Gibbs. Gibbs is a bro. He's such a guy, man. He's the dude. But before that, after him, it's Pintel and Ragetti who are like, yes, I would. And before that, they are crying that Jack is gone. And I'm like, you motherfuckers have betrayed him so many times. And the note I have is Pintel and Ragetti are so weirdly sincere in everything they do, which is if they're, I'm going to be a little blunt, they are sincerely a little rapey in their first interactions with Elizabeth. They are sincerely kind to each other. They are sincerely scumbags and how often they're trying to steal from people. But then they are sincerely friends. And we forgot to mention, because I can't help but not mention, the fight with the fish people on the island with Elizabeth and those two, where they're just throwing the sword back and forth by yelling, sword! But like right before that, though, they're threatening her. And what do you think that's going to amount to? Like, what do you think that's going to amount to? We know what they were going to do. And then it's immediately friends again. So, like, I don't love their characters because of what is implied with what they're about. But the actors' portrayal, the chemistry between those two, and how weirdly sincere they are in the good moments, makes it hard to hate them as a whole. So I had to make a note of that, because I already forget his name. Rigetti is crying with his one eye that Captain Jack Sparrow is dead. Why, dude? He doesn't even like you.
Yeah, no, I agree. The compelling aspect of their characters is the fact that the characters are just so sincere, which actually might be something to look at just in a greater sense with this franchise, is that it doesn't, it's not afraid of trying, right? Like there's this kind of idea right now, especially in the culture, just of being effortless, how everything is like super easy, and if it doesn't look easy, it's not cool. This film is the opposite of that, because there's clearly so much intention and planning that goes into everything. The music is intentional, the aesthetics and the special effects are intentional, the acting is intentional, the writing is so intentional. Like, everything is done on purpose, and there's a lot of thought given to everything, and you as an audience member have to watch it a couple of times before you really get it. Like, it was only just now that I was sitting here thinking, well, after I watched the film, I wrote this down. I was like, did Tia Dolma accept the monkey because it made it easier for Barbossa to resurrect, or did she just take it because he wanted his pet back? Like, that's the undead monkey is the payment that they used at the beginning of the film, and he shows up later on Barbossa's shoulder. Like, that's, and then I'm thinking, like, why is Tia Dolma resurrecting Barbossa? Like, why would she have any interest in doing that? But then she knows that the East India Trading Company is about to threaten everybody in, like, the ocean, and that's still her thing, is the ocean. So of course she's planning a war against the East India Trading Company. Like, of course she is. So, like, there's so much intentionality and strategy used in these, and I think that's what it boils down to with those two characters, particular with Rigetti and Pintel, because the fact that they are sitting there genuinely trying to discuss theology at one point with one another.
Yeah.
It's like,
you know,
it's
you can't
so
read.
good.
Yeah, it's
the Bible. You get credit for trying.
pretending to read the Bible's a lie. That's a mark against. Yeah, they're great. I just wish they were a little less salty in some.
I agree.
Regards.
I agree.
We could do without that. We could do without that. But 'Tis a Whale once again. Rotten Tomatoes critical score is not as fond of this one. I don't really care. I think this one is great. It's still fun. It's just not as good as the first.
Don't trust Rotten Tomatoes anymore. They're wrong.
I'm intrigued to talk about next week, because I've heard people talk about how the third one of the trilogy is the worst one. I don't agree. It's my favorite one of the three. Maybe not the best, but it's my favorite one. I love At World's End. 'Tis a Whale, spoiler, and I can't wait to get into it. It's just, I think, so wild.
The first one is probably, like, technically the best one, for sure, but I think it would be fair to say that any of the original trilogy is your favorite, you know?
Yeah. If the fourth one's your favorite, fine, I'd like an explanation. If the fifth one's your favorite, you're wrong. Yeah, so it's said. All right.
We might agree a little on the fifth one. Just some foreshadowing there.
Wait, what'd you say?
Nothing crazy. It's not my favorite, but I don't hate the fifth one. And I'm
gonna cut it on what did you say? Because if everyone else heard you, that's gonna be really funny. And we're